feel and even the smell sometimes of old books is just wonderful. Well, this is the one that you read, The Private Life of Adam and Eve, extracts from their diaries, translated from the original manuscripts by Mark Twain. Well, you read it. It's wonderful, absolutely wonderful in its satire of all sorts of things, religion, gender roles, you name it. It's got Adam. You read how it starts, where he says, this new creature, I don't like her. She's just a lot of problems. And then it turns into what is actually, in the end, a very beautiful love story between Adam and Eve. And it talks about after the fall, after they get kicked out of the Garden of Eden. Well, you read it, so you know how it works. But it's a wonderful story. And those closing lines of what Adam says about Eve after she's died, wherever she was, there was my Eden. What a beautiful line that he came up with. But anyway, when it came out, he got some flack from it. He got some criticism because of certain people said, you shouldn't be rewriting the story of Genesis, the story of Adam and Eve. That's totally inappropriate. This is sacred scripture. You shouldn't do that. And you're putting words into Adam and Eve's mouths that aren't there. Well, Twain knows that. First of all, Twain doesn't care. But second of all, he knows. And he's trying to make a point, again, by critiquing religion in sort of a sideways satire way. It works so much better. If you want to, what is it Emily Dickinson said, if you want to criticize something, come at it sideways. She didn't put it quite like that, but it's the best way to do it. And so this wonderful, funny, hilarious, moving little book by Mark Twain is the one I chose to have you read, just because I think it's such a great example of the brilliance of Twain. He loved science. This is something that keeps popping up in this course when we get people like Mary Shelley and Henry David Thoreau, who really love science. Henry David Thoreau, first of all, who is actually a good, accomplished experimental scientist. Mary Shelley, I don't know if she ever did a whole lot of stuff, but she was fascinated by it and a big supporter, a great interest in it. Twain is like that. Twain loved science. Think of all the things going on in the late 1800s, the development of electricity. The continuation of the Industrial Revolution. There's a lot going on. Discoveries in astronomy and medicine. Twain is behind all of that. He is an avid consumer of science. And I'm going to switch microphones. Sometimes the batteries go out on those and you never really know when it's coming. But anyway, Twain was a great fan of science. It comes up in his book a lot, which is one reason I think he's considered a science fiction writer in many ways. But loved science, very important to him. Empirical science. He's a great inventor too. He invents. Let's see if I have a picture. Yeah, well, this isn't Mark Twain, but he was an inventor. He, first of all, invented that really brilliant sort of printing machine that he came up with, poured really almost his whole fortune into it, and it would have worked. It's one of those things like if you come up with a really great idea for a new car, and then it comes out and people are praising it, and then 2 weeks later an even better car comes out that nobody was expecting. That's the sort of thing that happened with Twain. So he invented this great printing press that just ended up going nowhere, that he lost tons of money on. He invented, he patented these different ideas. I don't even know how to put it exactly. Sort of, they replaced the straps that people used to hold up pants. It was a way of holding different parts of fabric together that nobody had ever come up with before. He invents this sort of hook system for that. He invents all sorts of interesting things. Very much interested in technology, which normally doesn't go with a writer and an author, but for Twain, it was. He was buddies with leading scientists of the day, like Thomas Edison, who came to his home in Connecticut and filmed him. One of the earliest moving picture clips we have is Mark Twain walking on the deck of that really big house, because Edison was there with his big giant movie camera and he filmed him doing it. But, it didn't work out so well with him. He, like a lot of creative types, authors, artists, actors, even inventors, he wasn't particularly good with managing money. He wasn't wasteful. He didn't go to Vegas and blow it all or anything like that. But he made some investments, like in that printing machine, which were not a good idea. Remember Making Money 101, the thing that hopefully you learned up the hill in the business school, is if you're going to invest your money, diversify. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Well, Mark Twain did, and that is always a very risky thing to do. And it ended up costing him a lot of money. He doesn't become totally broke, but he loses so much money that he has to kind of start over in some ways, rebuilding his fortune, because he was a wealthy man. He did really well with his books, with his speaking tours and all of that. His inventions, not so much. But he has to start over again. He keeps a number of things. He keeps the basics, certainly, so you shouldn't feel too sorry for him. There was always food on the table, but he loses a lot of money, and how he makes it back, writing, yes, the revenue on books, but also speaking tours. Remember what we've talked about with Charles Dickens and Thoreau and Walt Whitman. They were all really big on speaking tours. Well, there was nobody better at it than Mark Twain. We don't have any recordings of him doing it, unfortunately. Thomas Edison didn't go to any of his talks, but commentaries and reviews say there is absolutely nobody of his day who could give a lecture like Mark Twain. He would talk about his writings. He would do voices, kind of like Charles Dickens did. Just talk about anything, because he was brilliant and he was funny, and people loved to go hear him. And so they would pay, I don't know what you'd pay, 25 cents for a ticket to go see Mark Twain. But he did this, and he did a lot of it. He does it again and again. He does it in America. He does it in Europe. And he manages to build back up some money. He was very concerned, like a lot of people were, that he was going to die and leave his wife and children in poverty, and that terrified him. So he worked very hard to make sure that he built back up some wealth. Well, he lived a fairly long life, actually. He was born when Halley's Comet was in the sky, and he died when Halley's Comet was in the sky. I forget the exact period of that. The last time Halley's Comet was in the sky, I remember, was 1985. I remember looking up and seeing it when I think I was about your age. I don't know. I was younger. But he was born when it appeared, and then it came back, and he died. And it's just something that sticks in my mind about him. This is one of the last photographs of him. It was done in a style that was experimental. It's not colored. Really, this is a color photograph, one of the very first ones. It was a new experimental type. Twain loved that sort of stuff. So he passes away in the early 1900s after his wife has died. Queen Victoria actually dies just before him. So, she'd been queen forever. But what is it that makes Twain such a great writer? Well, humor. Humor is it. When things are hard, when things are bad, when you've had a really hard day at school and you've had a professor up in front of your class that just goes on and on. Questions, anyone? Questions, anyone? If you get that for 8 or 9 hours, it gets a little tiring. And so you want to go back to your room and just watch something funny sometimes. And Twain knew that about people. Life was hard in the 1800s. Life is hard now. And he knew that people desperately needed to laugh. Laughter's the best medicine. A merry heart is a good medicine, says the Bible. And it really is. And so saw himself as providing a really important service to people by making them laugh. Of course, he wasn't, a clown, although being a clown is not easy. But he worked at different levels, like I've said, but humor was really important. Humor is the great thing, the saving thing, after all. The minute it crops up, all of our hardnesses yield, all our irritations and resentments flit away, and a sunny spirit takes their place. And it's true. I mean, you've seen this, you're going to see this for all the rest of your life. When you have a hard day and somebody can make you genuinely laugh, there's just nothing like it. It's wonderful. He was a man made for bumper stickers. He loved putting out pithy little sayings that people love to quote. It was like Yogi Berra, if you've heard of him. Mark Twain loved to say things like this. The classic, the more I learn about people, the more I like my dog. I've seen that on bumper stickers here at Pepperdine. It's a great little saying. But again, he's always trying to go for something deeper, I think, too. Clothes make the man. Naked people have little or no influence on society. Humor is the good-natured side of a truth. Oh, that's good. That's what Emily Dickinson talks about that in her poem, where she writes about coming at the truth but not head on. He's full of these wonderful little quotes. Google him sometimes. There are hundreds of Mark Twain quotes out there that are really quite good. He loved being quoted. He loved seeing these in the newspapers. What did he believe in? Well, capitalism, no surprise. Sorry if I'm speaking too loud. I'm trying to get this at the right point. As you could tell, he liked making money. He wasn't apologetic about it. He wasn't out to hurt anybody doing it, but he wanted to make money. He came from a fairly poor background, and he wanted to have the comfort that money brings. He knew that money wasn't, the guarantor of happiness, but it's a whole lot better than being poor most of the time. And so he was a great believer in capitalism. He wrote about the importance of investment, the importance of business, the importance of free enterprise, all of that. All of the things that we think of with basic capitalism at the time. So he is not at all a socialist. You get people like Henry David Thoreau, I think, would give away every penny they had, and he wanted to get rid of government totally. Not Mark Twain. He was not what I would consider terms like liberal and conservative don't really mean that much out of the context of their times. But he would probably consider himself more of an economic conservative, absolutely, and more of a social liberal. He was an anti-imperialist. Now remember what's going on at the time. We've talked about the Mexican-American War. The United States was invading the Philippines in the late 1800s. The United States was expanding. And so the British Empire had basically expanded to the extent it was going to, but was still very strong. Twain thought this was a bad idea. He thought imperialism just didn't work very well. He condemned American moves to take over Hawaii, certainly American moves to take over the Philippines, anything like this. He said what we should do in America, we've got our borders, they're good borders, stay within them. And not try to build an empire, because every empire falls. And when you overstretch yourself, you almost guarantee that things are going to come apart. It's very expensive. Anyway, he was not a part of the spirit of the times that was, saying we should go and just spread America all around the world if we can. He said, no, we have to be more careful than that. This was also a movement in Britain. They called it the Little Britain movement, which was against the whole idea of the British Empire. So there were a lot of different people believing a lot of different things. So very much a capitalist, but not wanting to go and spread American power and American territory and take over other countries at all. Now religion. Well, you can see by the quote here probably what he believed. He was born into a Presbyterian family, and from what we can tell, for a long time he was quite sincere. But as he grew older, he becomes less and less religious, and in fact, more anti-religious in some ways. Now, he was very careful about this, because back then in the 1800s, and even today, of course, if you come out as being anti-God, anti-religion, you're going to get in some trouble, and certainly you're not going to sell as many books. So he kept this under wraps pretty much. He just, made a snide remark every now and then, and people said, oh, that's just Twain being Twain. A lot of his writings, which are more anti-religious, and some of them get really anti-religious, were not published until after he died by his family and by his heirs. But his own personal feelings about religion, well, he talks about believing in God, but believing in God maybe in the same way that Thoreau did, in the way that God is whatever I want him to be, spirit of the universe or whatever. It's certainly not in any sort of a Christian point of view at all. He goes back and forth about believing in life after death. He says maybe there's something, but it's certainly not a Christian life after death. It's more like Socrates looking at life after death. So, he was certainly raised in a Christian tradition, but he rejected that and became very, especially and it's really sad to see, honestly, how anti-religious he became, especially after his wife died. That just broke his heart, tore him apart. And he went through the same theodicy problem that I talked about with my classes in Hymn 111, the justice of God, theodicy. How can there be a just, all-powerful God when there is so much suffering in the world? A question that a lot of people have asked. He asked it and came up with the answer, there can't be. And so he, as I said, though, people really didn't know how he felt strongly about this, how strongly, until after he died. Well, why is Mark Twain important? He is important, first of all, as a literary figure. He is absolutely magical as a wordsmith about creating stories. You read Dickens is stunningly good. You read Mary Shelley, absolutely amazing. And then you read Twain. And it's like you're talking to a very smart next-door neighbor. His style of writing is so, approachable. It's just quite amazing, especially for his times, where people were not writing like that, but Twain was. And so it's quite an influential guy as far as writing, of course, but also with politics. His views of anti-imperialism certainly became more popular with time. His views of capitalism, among certain elements, didn't, but among others, it did. Just his commentary on America in so many ways, his views, his use of satire. Satire, if you're a fan of Saturday Night Live or anything else, that's satire. It's the most powerful way of criticizing something. People don't like to be lectured to. People don't like to be told, save the whales, even though they like whales. What they want to be, if you want to criticize somebody, if you want to say they're not recycling enough, tell a story, tell a satire. It will work so much better than directly confronting anybody. That's what Twain knew. And so he's very influential. He's continuing to grow and to be appreciated even in the year 2025. He's just, as I said, I think probably the most important American writer, American thinker even, that we have. So quite an amazing guy. All right, I rushed through that because the microphone is not working. That's it for today. Come back Thursday and we'll talk about a very different guy.